As authors, I'm not sure we think often enough about the difference between investment and speculation. So let me put it in some different terms here. If I am a business owner and I own, let's say, a bookstore, and I decide that I want to put a cafe in my bookstore, so I buy a espresso machine and all the accoutrements, and I spend maybe several $1,000s doing this. My expectation of getting money back on that investment is based on the fact that I have a pre-existing business that has pre-existing traffic that is likely to also want coffee because I have done some research into consumer habits, and I'm relatively certain the people who like books tend to overlap with people who like coffee. So that's a pretty safe bet for me putting a cafe inside of a bookstore. If I don't yet own a business and I want to invest, quote unquote, in a cafe, and I spend the same amount of money in buying all of the same amount of equipment, but I don't have a guaranteed place that I know I can put it in and make money in it, that is speculation. That's not investment. It may still turn out to be an investment if what I have done works correctly. But there's so much more risk involved in speculation than there is in investment. And often when we're authors and we're listening to the way other authors talk about how they quote unquote invest money in their business, we don't always understand the context of that investment. So I want to spend a little bit of time in this episode talking about the context of speculation versus the context of investment and why I think it's important for authors to think about this at all. So let's get into it. My name is Becca Syme, and I run a business called Better Faster Academy. And I also do this podcast, the Quitcast, for writers. And what I do here is I try to answer questions. The tagline of this podcast used to be, anyone can tell you what works for them, and they can say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. I can tell you why. My goal always in doing help with authors is to try to help you as an individual make the best decisions you can about your author business. So I take a more individualized approach rather than a big picture sort of conceptual generalist approach. And I think that is hard for some people to understand in terms of what it actually means when I give advice. I give a lot of advice that goes against what common advice is that you'll hear from workshop stages at a lot of different conferences in this industry, because I understand that the people who are giving that advice have a particular context that makes them give that advice. They don't always know that's the context that they're speaking from, and they don't always know it's the context they're speaking to either. But I know because I've coached enough people. I have seen this enough. I have a background in industrial and organizational psych, among other things, but I have a background in doing this, both helping other people do it and also doing it myself. And the difference between that kind of perspective is it allows you to have more experience with patterns rather than just hearing what someone else says with a lot of certainty. We talk a lot on this podcast about the certainty and correctness scale, and I want to do a quick rundown of what I mean by that so we can have that information as we go along. So here's the quick primer on the certainty versus correctness scale. For biological reasons and survival mechanism reasons, what would make us the most comfortable is if certainty and correctness always had a completely direct relationship in that one caused the other to happen. So if I sound very certain, then I'm also very correct, and they go up in a parallel and down in a parallel, and they always go up and down together. That's what our bodies would prefer is the case, because our bodies are the places that register fear. Our physical bodies are the places that register fear. And I don't think we understand this well enough. We think that there's some kind of logic that we can just, logic button we can push. But the reality is that our biological responses are happening in biological places. So often we get very secure when we're listening to someone talk who is very certain, because we're like, oh, they're very certain. So that means they must be very correct and it's okay for me to listen to them. And we don't realize that this is the biological signal that's happening in our physical body. It's an unconscious thing that we are not aware of. What actually happens in real life, though, the ideal is not what happens. What really happens is that certainty and correctness have an inverse relationship. So instead of being very parallel to each other, there is an x-axis and a y-axis. Certainty is on one, correctness is on the other. So you can be totally and completely correct and 100% uncertain, but you can also be completely incorrect, 0 on the correctness, totally certain. And I don't think that we take into consideration how important this is when we're listening to advice. Because when you listen to someone tell you, oh, hey, audiobooks are a great investment, and they use investment language, and you think, okay, I've got $10,000 sitting around, let me invest that into my business. We don't think enough about the bookshop, coffee shop thing. We think, well, I have an author business and audiobooks are part of the author business. And therefore, I am the most likely as an author to be able to sell a book in audio to readers because I am in the business of writing books. But what we don't think about is, do we have access to demand for the actual books that we are writing? And is that the indicator? And because that should be the indicator for whether it's an investment or a speculation. But when we hear people talk about how, like, and I'm just going to pick on a few of them because I think these are the ones I hear the most commonly, that direct sales is a really great idea, that audiobooks or translations are a really great idea, especially when translations and audiobooks are very expensive. When doing direct sales for especially the courses and the infrastructure and everything is really expensive, both in the actual money we're paying and in the time that we're taking to do it. And I'm all for, if you have the money and the time to burn, or you feel extremely certain about it, do the thing. But for those of you who are feeling uncertain, you have an intuition that you don't want to do it. So you think, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know. I don't know. And you edge more and more and more towards the uncertainty feeling, right? And other people are very certain. And so then our tendency is to want to believe the other people because they are very certain and we are very uncertain. And we can tell the difference between our certainty and their certainty because it's part of our biological wiring. But what we don't realize is that their correctness may not be 100% when their certainty is 100%. And our certainty may actually be 100% correct, even if we don't feel that it is very correct. But we have an intuition that we are not listening to because we feel uncertain about it. And again, I'm such a huge fan of listen to your intuition. And I heard a really great thing the other day that I think that I reposted, but I want to keep reposting it and reminding people, which is that intuition makes statements and anxiety or fear asks questions. So be mindful when you hear your intuition of, I don't think I should do this. I don't feel good about doing this. This does not feel right. That's a statement. That's intuition. So the more you can practice listening to your intuition, the better, because your intuition has a natural sense for resource management. You naturally have a better understanding in your intuitive self about, I don't think I can do this. I don't think that we really have this money. I don't think this is a good idea for me, right? Like, that certainty, that feeling of intuitive certainty is not always going to register as logical certainty for you because your brain is automatically saying, oh, do we have proof? Do I have data? Do I know for sure why this is? Nope, we don't know. Okay, great. I'm moving us down towards the uncertainty scale. So then we automatically are like, oh, we are less and less certain. But that's not always true. So understanding the actual relationship between certainty and correctness, then that means we have a tool to be able to fight against other people's certainty in the QTP, right? When we're questioning the premise of things, is this right for me? The first indicator that it's not right for you is that you have an intuition that it's not right for you. And I want us to practice listening to that more often. So investment versus speculation becomes an important topic for me as an author coach because I see people who invest who really can't afford to invest. They don't realize that they're speculating. They have books that haven't proven themselves in sales, right? They're still in phase one of their author business, and they're starting to build products and build infrastructure around this business that hasn't yet proven that there's a demand for it. There aren't yet people coming into the bookstore wanting to buy books and therefore potentially also wanting to buy coffee. But we think that it's going to draw more people in. And we've heard stories that it does sometimes happen. So, what I'm not trying to do is argue with the fact that there have been people who have speculated on audiobooks and then have made money because of that speculation. I'm definitely not trying to argue with that. It does happen. What's more common is that we speculate on audiobooks and they don't return for us because we don't have the guaranteed demand of readers who want the audiobooks because they already want the paperbacks and the ebooks. So all I'm trying to do is encourage us. I mean, I would say try to convince us, but encourage us to question the premise in the moment of, could I just never see this money again? Is it okay for me to never see this money again? Because that's the question you ask when you're speculating. If you're investing and you genuinely think you're going to see the money back, there is a very good chance that is proven that the demand exists for the books. There's a likely set of readers there that want it. You're being hounded for it, right? There's a significant demand for it. And then you're responding to that demand by investing in a product that will then yield money for you over the course of time, where you're going to have to build infrastructure around that process inside of your business. And then you're going to have to build more audiobooks and promote them and launch them and have people who babysit that process, et cetera, et cetera. So you're moving more towards an infrastructure space. The more decisions you make about creating audiobooks, that's investment versus speculation. The more likely it is that I'm going to get the money back based on current demand, not based on what I wish would happen. That's speculation. The more likely you are to see the money back based on current demand, the more it is an investment. And the reason I want to parse between this is that we always have a limited amount of money to spend on things when we are not yet out of phase one. Even if we have a large amount of money, like I have some clients who have the capacity to make audiobooks out of their books because speculating for them, the pile of money that they have to set aside to put into the books to speculate is a bigger pile than other people have. And that is sure an advantage. It doesn't mean they shouldn't take it. It just means it is an advantage in that space. So if you have the option of speculating more because you have more available capital, then do it. I think that's a wise decision because, again, the reason that we talk about Loki being in charge is not to say this will never happen because you can't possibly beat Loki. It's to say we never know. Like, it's possible that it might take off. It's possible that it might do the thing, but then it's a speculative possibility, not an investment possibility. So when we're parsing the difference, the more close to phase one in the business phases we are, which is the research and development phase, where we're not yet making 100% of our money back plus 100%. So 100% complete profit over what we spent on the book. When we're not in that space yet, we are still in the research and development phase trying to find the demand, because demand is what launches you out of the research and development phase. And we have some business phases information on the Patreon. I will put that in the show notes so that you can have it. But I want us to think about this, the difference between investment and speculation. If you want to speculate, save your money to speculate, and then take the money that you know you can afford to not see back and speculate. If you can't afford to speculate, don't keep filling your mind with people who are encouraging you to speculate on things. Because I'm seeing way too many people who are running out of resources because they keep trying every single thing that the certainty people are saying, this will work, this will work, this will work, not realizing that unless you have proven demand, everything is speculation. And again, it's not to say don't speculate. It's to say, expect to not get the money back, not in terms of don't hope that you'll get it back, but don't expect it. Don't take your mortgage payment and spend it making an audiobook. because there isn't a high likelihood that you're going to get that back. And for me, it's about making wise choices. So I'm working on this second version of Dear Writer, You Need to Quit. And this is one of the chapters in it. And we're going to talk all about the business phases. We have a business phases Kickstarter that is happening currently. Technically, it's the Quit Book for Writers 2, the Dear Writer, You Still Need to Quit Kickstarter. So I hope you'll go over there and join us. And I specifically designed this tool that I'm launching along with the book, which is this deck. I specifically designed this tool to be as helpful as possible in understanding what impact these business phases have on your author career. We're going to do a little bit more content about this in upcoming business phases episodes on this Quitcast. If you want to learn more information, please go check out the post on the Patreon. Go check out the Kickstarter and back the Kickstarter if you have interest. But ultimately, the action point from this particular episode is get used to asking the question, can I afford to not see this money back if I'm in phase one? Can I afford to not see it again? If I can, then by all means, let's be a little bit risky in our speculation. If I can't afford to not see it back, I want to keep doing the foundational work to continue to build my business that is in the research and development phase so that I can get out of R&D at some point. But I also want to not be discouraged by the fact that I'm still in R&D, because it doesn't mean I'm never going to get out of it. I don't care how many years we spend there. It doesn't matter. All it means is I haven't gotten out of it yet. I still have a chance to beat Loki every single time I release a book. Every single time I release a new product, I have a chance to beat Loki. The only time Loki as a reason belongs in our thinking is when we're looking backwards to describe what has happened and why we're moving on. But in terms of in the future, we don't need to be scared of Loki. He doesn't have anything against us. It just means it's not predictable what happens. So I want to take those odds. I want to play that game. I want to see if I can make things work. But I have to understand the difference between investment and speculation, because it's going to affect my long-term viability in this industry. And I want to be an author for life. I want to be in this for as long as I possibly can, author for life. So I hope you'll come back to the next episode of the podcast. And if you want to check out the Kickstarter, it is limited. We have some really great add-ons that are going to happen there, which I'll talk more about in future episodes. But I want to keep it to a minimum because these are also evergreen Quitcast episodes. So please check the Kickstarter out. If you are listening to this or watching this when we do not have a Kickstarter open, please check out the Patreon post. That should be evergreen. And I hope to see you all on the next Quitcast. Bye, everybody.